Divorce.
Ahoy there, mateys. Welcome back to the Super Divorce YouTube channel.
Welcome.
Nicholas Villars here, aka Super Divorce, and today, something quite different. Something perhaps a bit self-indulgent. But I was feeling a bit nostalgic, and I started horsing around on Google Earth. Sort of wandering around the old stomping grounds, my old neighborhood that I grew up in, and found myself outside my old elementary school here. Harry Russell Elementary, right there. West Carrollton Pirates. That's what I was. I was a pirate back in the day. And this is where I went to elementary school. I moved to West Carrollton and started attending this elementary school in, I think, 1991 is what it would have been. And my first year here was in second grade. Before that, I went to one town over. It was called Miamisburg, Ohio. And did pre-school, kindergarten, and first grade over at Miamisburg at Mound Elementary when I was a Viking. And then we moved across town, next town over here to West Carrollton, became a pirate. And this is where I did my schooling from second grade to sixth grade. Back in the 90s, this is where I would be, and when I discovered some of my favorite pop culture loves, if you will. They weren't referred to as pop culture back then. It was just what you liked. Kind of wish we could go back to that. You say these things, you know, and then they stick out like a sore thumb. For some reason, just saying that made me feel like disgusting. Like not like, ew, that's gross. Like it felt like I was disgusted at hearing that come out of my mouth so naturally. Pop culture. Yeah, it's pop culture. Like no one talked like that. We didn't talk like that back in the day. No one talked about pop culture. People just talked about the things they enjoyed, the things they were into. But this is where I got into Power Rangers, you know. Before I went to school here in the morning, I would wake up, and I think Rangers, when it debuted, it was on at like 6 a.m., 6 or 6:30. You had to wake up super early, and I would have my mom get me up in the morning, and then I would drag my carcass down the hallway, out into the living room, and with all the lights still off, very cozily, very comfily, I would lay down on the couch with my comforter, and I would watch Power Rangers in the morning. And then when that was over, it was up and at 'em, time to start getting ready for school. I think our school started at 8:30 or 9, something like that. But that wasn't too bad. I didn't even have to take a bus to Harry Russell Elementary School because I lived so close. Even being in second grade, I was able to walk to school. I don't know if kids are still allowed to do that, even if you live like right down the road. I've heard they've really cracked down on that. Like kids aren't allowed to just wander the streets anymore. Like you couldn't walk on down Elementary Drive down here and explore the hood. Maybe we'll do that sometime. Maybe I'll take you through the neighborhood. I don't know. Is anyone going to watch this? Like I said, it's almost completely self-indulgent. But I was like, well, you know, some people like nostalgic shit. And then, you know, if you are inspired by this video and you go searching your old stomping grounds, you know, let me know in the comments below. I'm not being ironic when I say that either, because, you know, that's a big tube. Let me know in the comments below. I make fun of it in my videos. I'll say that. I'll just throw it out there. But I mean it this time. If you look around your old neighborhood or you have memories from back in the day, let me know, because it'd be fun to talk about them. Anyway, here's something that just comes to mind. When I was in high school, long after I had left Harry Russell, I remember coming to this church parking lot, Church of the Nazarene, I believe it is, and I attempted to learn to skateboard in this parking lot. I've attempted several times in my life to pick up the hobby of skateboarding. And, I like it. I really do. I still, even at almost 40 years old, I'm 39 now, I would still like to become a competent skateboarder. I don't need to be Tony Hawk, but I think it's cool. I've always thought skateboarding was cool. I had friends who were into skateboarding, and some who were actually pretty good. And I never put the time in to learn it. But I've tried several times over the years, as recently as like a few years back, a couple, 2-3 years ago. And, I can get on the board and like scoodle doot down the lane for a few seconds, but I'm not competent. I wouldn't call myself even a novice. I'm below novice. Anyhow, what else hits me here? Just looking around. This sign right here has been here since I went to school at Harry Russell. You can tell this is old-fashioned shit right here. This is not a manufactured sign. This is not something they picked up at the local hardware store. Like someone actually wrote "Do not block crosswalk" on here in some sort of paint or something, and it's been there forever. Right in here, right in the ground, right there, like the sword and the stone. If you pull this out, you become the ultimate crossing guard. Maybe. It's funny because you can't even hardly see the crosswalk anymore. Did they still have crossing guards? I wonder. Back in the day, that was a big deal. If you got chosen to be part of the safety guard, I think is what they called them. And then you got to put on the orange vest, and you had like the stick with the flag on the end of it, like the orange flag to stop cars from coming. And they'd send some crossing guards out here, have them stationed at this crosswalk, and then they'd also have them down the road around the other side. I'll show you that in a second. But, nothing too much happened out here. This was not like a big play area. This is just the front entrance to the shul, and then, there are the front doors, principal offices right there. Down in this wing over here is like where they did preschool and kindergarten. First grade was kind of over here. And then back around the back side is where you had the, on the far side of the shul is where you had like 6th grade, 5th grade. 4th grade was kind of in the middle. But anyway, let's just move along here. See if we can see anything else that's for fun. Looks like their pavement here, the road is in dire need of a little fix-up. Lots of cracks happening. This walkway, probably seen better days. Looks like they've patched up a few things. I guess that's good. Big patch right there. Tell you something about this zone. Look back here where the dumpsters are. I remember when school let out and summer had just begun, my buddies and I, we came down here and we were doing some dumpster diving because they were throwing a bunch of shit out. They were throwing out a bunch of old textbooks, and for some reason we thought that was cool. Like, oh, we'll just go and grab some textbooks and shit. So we did, and we were pulling out random stuff, knickknacks, stuff teachers had thrown out. I don't know, school supplies that they didn't need anymore. Like what? I don't know. Besides old textbooks, what else would they have been throwing away? Like little graphics they'd hang up in the classrooms, infographics, motivational posters, whatever the hell they were throwing out. We were going into the dumpsters and pulling shit out and probably taking it home and then pissing our parents off for bringing home a bunch of junk. But we did that, I think, for several days. And one time I was in one of these dumpsters here, and I remember getting cut by something, and this totally irrational, stupid fear like just gripped me. For some reason, I remember it entering my mind, and I was plagued by this thought for days. Is like, what if I just got cut by a hypodermic needle and the person had AIDS? And I was like elementary school, but there were AIDS stories all over the place in the early 90s. It was still a huge deal. And I remember there were like news stories where, I don't know, there was some, it could be an urban legend, but I remember this being a thing that people talked about. Like, you had to be careful when you went up to pay phones. If you put change in and then you had change come out and the change return, and you had to put your finger, in case you're not familiar with this, maybe you're not. When you use a pay phone, you know, where you'd put a quarter in to use it, sometimes the quarter would not be accepted by the machine. And so it would come out in the coin return. And the coin return at the bottom of the payphone, it had like this little metal door that you would kind of push open, and then you reach in and then pull your change out. And there was this rumor going around, and maybe it was on the news, maybe I'm misremembering. It could be just like urban legend brain, 90s urban legend brain, still sticking with me. But people talked about drug addicts, junkies, putting hypodermic needles in the coin return so that people would reach in to grab their change, and then they'd get poked by a hypodermic needle, and then they'd get AIDS, which I don't even know if that's possible. But that kind of shit swirling around in the news and on the playground. I got cut by something, I couldn't see what it was, and it like poked me, and then I couldn't find it. And it was like, oh my God, what if a drug addict walked by and threw this hypodermic needle in here and now I have AIDS? That would suck. But that was the kind of shit I worried about as a child. Speaking of skateboarding, I mentioned skateboarding, how I tried to skateboard over here. Some of my buddies who did skateboard would come over here after shul. They'd be skateboarding. I'd just be dicking around, whatever. They'd use this ramp, these railings, all that kind of shit. So that's fun. That's my dumpster story. That's what happens right there. This parking lot, I don't know. I'm still not sure what this building's all about. I think they've got electrical shit in there. I'm pretty sure that's it. And hold on, let me see if I can. It won't let me go down this way. If you were to walk this path to its end, at least back in the olden times, there was a little bridge that that you could take through these woods that led over to the next main street. There's a big street that runs all the length up and down the way here called, what is that? Gibbons, I think. And then to the left, there was a corner store over there. My best friend lived down at the end of Gibbons, but you could take this little path, cross a bridge over a small creek here that would sometimes fill up. It would fill up mighty nice during rainstorms, to the point where sometimes the road would be flooded. But anyway, let's keep moving along here. Let's go on down this way. These doors right here, I think number 6, that door, I believe leads into the cafeteria, and then these 2 doors would lead into the gymnasium. Used to have basketball practice down here at elementary, at the Harry Russell Elementary School during my intramural days. I would just walk down here at night. Sometimes, you know, it gets to be winter time, about like it is right now. January, December, end of November. If you have basketball practice, just walk on down here. About 5:30 or 6 p.m., it'd already be dark. And again, I don't know if kids are allowed to do that anymore. Can you do that? Can you just send your kid out at dark to walk to basketball practice? I don't know. But this is where I would go. You'd come to this door, and they'd probably have it propped open. You'd see some cars parked out here, and people hanging out, going there for b-ball. During the school day in the gym, I had a teacher called Mr. Stebbins. And what I remember about him is he was kind of like a surfer guy. He had this kind of blonde pomp, not quite a pompadour, but like a blonde, what would you call it? If I had to make up a word for it, it'd be like a fwamp. A blonde fwamp that just kind of, it just fwomped over like a surfer dude. And he was probably in his 20s back at that point, maybe early 30s. He was a fairly athletic guy. I remember always being impressed by his athleticism when he was showing us various examples of what to do when we were playing different sports like hockey or basketball or what have you. But he had this thing in the corner of the gym. There would be a red mat on the floor, and he called it the chill out zone. And what that was for was in case anyone got too rowdy during class, he would run over with his whistle, he'd tweet a couple times, and he'd say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, go to the chill out zone!" And he'd send you over to the chill out zone. You have to go and sit there or stand there if it was a couple of you. Maybe you'd be by yourself if you were the lone perpetrator. But inside this gym, once upon a time, the chill out zone. I don't know if he's still there. That'd be a shame if he's not, because that would mean that the chill out zone probably no longer exists. But maybe you in your life, you can implement your own chill out zone in some way. Maybe for your children, maybe for yourself. Maybe you can set up your own chill out zone just for you. If you notice yourself getting a little too worked up about anything, maybe in the tradition of Mr. Stebbins at Harry Russell Elementary School in 1990, you set up your own little chill out zone. You send yourself there. Something makes you too mad, bit of news, a coworker, maybe you can set one up in your office. Even in your cubicle, if you don't have much room, maybe you scoot back a few feet, maybe even a few inches to your chill out zone, and you just sit there and calm your ass down until you're ready to handle yourself like a normal human being. Okay? Might be worth a shot. Oh, what else? Let's scoodle doot right past here. So when school let out for the day, we would come out these doors right here, and this is all new. This is all new bullshit right here. I don't know what this is all about. Maybe it has to do with safety. Did they have trouble with someone trying to run the children over during recess or after school? I don't know. But I don't know what all these poles are for. At least they made them red and black. Those are West Carrollton Pirates colors. So they tried to make it at least somewhat aesthetically appealing. They tried to keep with the school mascot color scheme. They didn't just make them all yellow, which I guess would have been more of an eyesore. Maybe. I don't know. But these were not here when I was a child. This was all free-range concrete, and yeah, we had many a basketball game right here. There used to be, you had this one there, and I'm pretty sure there was a hoop on the other side as well. They probably took that out because the kids wouldn't have enough room with all this horse shit in the way now. But then there was another basketball hoop right here, so you could play going long ways like that. And then you got your other hoop down there. One time on this here playground, I had brought some Power Rangers toys to school. Right after they first came out. That was a big Christmas that year. That was one of those Christmases where I wanted all the Power Rangers. I wanted all the Power Rangers toys. You couldn't find them anywhere. We got through opening all the presents, and then, it was like, oh, did you get everything you want? Yeah, it was nice. And then my stepdad went down into our basement and came back up, and he's like, I think Santa left some stuff downstairs for you. There's bags down there. Let's see what's in them. And he empties these bags out, and I open them up, and it was all the Power Rangers toys, like every single one that had been released. All the different individual Rangers, the big ones and the smaller ones, and then the Zords, everything. It was incredible. It was awesome. But for some reason, I brought my Power Rangers toys to school, a few, and this kid named Brett, who I ended up playing in a band with many years later, he took my Yellow Ranger, and I looked over, and he was sitting, I think it would have been like over here, right at the edge of this concrete step on this little platform. He had my Yellow Ranger by the legs, and he was just smashing it into the concrete for no reason. I didn't do anything to him. I didn't piss him off. Everyone else is playing nicely, having a good time, but I looked over and he's just smashing it into the concrete. Maybe he was pissed off that he didn't have one. I don't know. Maybe he didn't like me for some reason. But I was like, what? So he keeps smashing it, and the arm flies off. Like, not to where you can reconnect it, but he snapped the plastic, like where it connects to the body. And it goes flying. And I was devastated because I knew I wasn't going to be able to get another one because you couldn't find them anywhere. So I think I said something like, you broke my Power Ranger, Every time that I would pass him in the hallway, this little shit, he would make like crybaby face, and he would say, you broke my Power Ranger, and like giggle and go running away. And so I was kind of like, I was pretty pissed about it, as you can imagine. And I was giving him some shit. Like every time I would see him, I'd be like, you need to buy me another Power Ranger. And he would just make fun of me and run away. And at a skating party one night, his brother, who was a grade above us, cornered me. And he grabbed me by the shirt and acted like he was going to punch me in the face. He's like, leave my brother alone. And I was like, oh shit. I'm being threatened by a third grader. Because I was in second grade. So third graders seemed like, he was 50 years older than me and would just absolutely pummel me if I did anything else. So I dropped it, and that was that. And then, like I said, many years later, I ended up playing in a band with this guy, and we've laughed about that story multiple times over the years, and he'll still make fun of me. He'll still do the, you broke my Power Ranger, But good times, everything worked out in the end. Is just, at the time it sucked. You don't want your toys to get broken by some little shit out on the playground, but maybe the lesson there is don't bring your toys to school. Don't bring your pogs to school. We used to play pogs out here on recess. People would bring their big tubes of pogs, and this one kid lost all of his because we played for keeps. We did the same thing with Pokemon cards when they came out. We would play for keeps. It was like gambling. And this kid lost all of his pogs. And of course, he went crying to the principal's office, and then principal ended up getting involved and made the kid who won the pogs give them back. And then after that, pogs were outlawed. And I'm pretty sure the same exact thing happened with Pokemon cards, where someone lost a bunch of Pokemon cards playing for keeps, and then those were outlawed. Those were banned from the shul. Couldn't do those anymore. Couldn't do Stardust. You know what Stardust is? There was this like craze for a while where people were mixing packets of Kool-Aid with sugar and then putting them in plastic baggies. And there were like dealers. There were people dealing what was called, we called it Stardust on recess. And, the dealers would bring all these different flavors of Kool-Aid to school mixed with sugar. So you had all these different colored packets, and they'd bring their book bag out and be like, which flavor do you want? And people were paying for them out on the playground, and then eating sugar during class. That became a problem. That got banned. Kids are always up to some shit, man. What else we used to get up to? We used to play football over here, running the length of this field. And there were also some baseball diamonds. There was one here facing to the left, and then one here facing out to the right. And like in the local leagues, there were never any games that took place out in this field, but we did practice at these fields sometimes. And during the summer, by the way, I don't mean they were just like they put some bases down. They had like the big backstop cage, 2 of them. Like I said, one facing this direction, the other one going this way. The big backstop cage, and fully dirt fields with bases and everything. But there was no fence or anything. They didn't have fences going back. It was just if you hit it really far and you could make it around the bases, you got a home run. That's only inside the park home runs, if you will. No designated home run spot. But we would walk down here during the summertime and we would play baseball like in the sand lot, because we all wanted to be like we were in the Sandlot back in the day. When that movie came out, it was a craze, man. Everyone wanted to be the kids from the Sandlot. I definitely wanted to be Benny the Jet Rodriguez. Couldn't find PF Flyers back in the day, but I always had my Chuck Taylors, my black Chucks. I thought those were pretty close to Benny's PF Flyers. Had to make do, but we'd play baseball over here. We'd have wrestling matches over here. We had a local wrestling promotion all throughout, not all throughout. I would say starting in like 4th grade through maybe 7th grade, we had a local wrestling promotion. And it wasn't like, obviously we weren't doing many WWF at the time style moves. We would do submissions. It was probably more like kids doing MMA than anything. And we would go for wrestling moves sometimes, but really almost all the matches were won by submission, making the other guy give up. Every now and again you could get someone that you could hold down and get a good pinfall, but the majority, 99% of the time, it was probably won by a submission. And I was the champion for quite some time. I think I was only beaten like a couple times. One time I wrestled my friend Josh over here for the championship. He was champion and I won it from him. And we had belts and everything. We kept track. And he took the belt after I won it and he climbed to the top of the backstop cage and he tore the belt in half and threw it off the cage down to the dirt below of the baseball diamond. And I was crushed. It was like a really dramatic moment. I remember walking over, like dropping to my knees and picking up the 2 halves of the belt and just like staring at it like I just won this. And he ripped it in half. I'm the rightful champion. He's stolen my trophy, damn it. Remember doing get someone with either a DDT or a pile driver one time, my buddy, and I didn't mean to hurt him, but you're wrestling on like just the ground, not really aware of what you're doing. I mean, I understood. I wasn't trying to like spike his head or spike his neck and break his neck. I think it was just like the way we fell, he ended up hurting his neck, and I was really, really scared because I thought that, he was going to be paralyzed and sue my family. And, I wasn't a worrywart or anything. Looking over here, what happened on the other side of this playground? What are we missing? I'll tell you what's missing if we can just scoot on down just a bit more. So when I'm looking at this side of the playground, there used to be a nice play set. If you follow my mouse here, a nice play set going all the way from basically right about this walkway over to where this play set is. And it was cool. Had like a ramp you could run up, and then there were the tic-tac-toe letters that you could spin around, big plastic ones. And then the next part had a tunnel and multiple slides and the little kind of like the like rubbery, like what it was like a what would you call it? Kind of like a ladder made out of like chain link, like a chain link ladder, but covered in rubber, so you wouldn't get your fingers caught and smashed up in them. And you could climb that up to the top and go through the tunnels and everything. That's all gone now. I don't know why. I guess you want the kids to have less to play on? Awesome. There was another play set over here behind this basketball hoop in this part of the field. Another nice play set that's just gone. It had monkey bars. It had like the rings. That play set was like all wood. Maybe it rotted and they had to get rid of it. I don't know. But when I look at this, I just see, okay, the kids have less shit to play on now. Great job, Russell. Great job, local school board. And, right here, they had one of those, was it here? Somewhere in this region, they had one of those big bubbles made out of, like bars. Like a big bar bubble that you could climb up on and then you could get inside of, and that's gone now. And and over here they had the fucking thing that Napoleon Dynamite played. What was that game? With the ball, tetherball. They had tetherball. They had all sorts of stuff. It just looks like they haven't kept up with anything. I don't know what the deal is. Do kids just come outside? Maybe they just come outside and sit on their phones all recessed long now. So they're like, well, we're not going to put any money into it. So I guess they've got the swings at least. Still got some swing sets. What else is missing? Inside that the tunnel play set that I was talking about that's gone now. That's actually where I had my first kiss as a fourth grader. I met my girlfriend here. Me and my friend and her friend met here at the playground after school one day in fourth grade. And that's where I had my first kiss, inside that tunnel. Lost to time. Not like a makeout. It wasn't like anything hardcore, fourth graders, but a sweet, tender moment from childhood lost to time. Lost to the ether. Never to return. I can never look upon that and think back. And so that's where I had my first innocent little elementary school kiss. No, just have to remember it in my mind now. Because they tore it up. It's all gone. But I mentioned we played football over on the that field by the baseball diamonds. We also played here a lot. This is where we played football most of the time. This was one end zone, this walkway, and the other end zone was way down here by the tree line. That's a small little hill that goes up, and if you got to that, you scored a touchdown. I think it was marked by this telephone pole. If you made it past that telephone pole, then you had a touchdown going that direction. Usually I had to play two-hand touch, but if we saw that the playground aides, not the disease, but the ladies who would be out there with their whistles, if we saw that they were preoccupied, sometimes we'd switch and we'd try to play tackle. We'd definitely come back here after school, like everyone from this neighborhood. That was a regular activity all throughout the school year, even when it was like super duper cold out. At least a few times a week, we'd all come down here. Lots of kids live in this neighborhood. We'd all posse up after school. After you get home, you have your snack, you whatever, you watch a couple TV shows, play some video games, and then, maybe around 4:30-ish, everyone's like, all right, meet down at the fields. We're going to play some football. We'd come down here and we'd play football until it got dark. And then, when you have those groups, when you have those big posses, it's like you'd split off. It's not like everyone went back to one house, because it was normally like the posse would be made up of a best friend and a best friend and another best friend, another best friend. But then you all get together, and then when it's time to go home, you might go back to your best friend's house and hang out in the evening. In case you're wondering how things worked back then, that's the way it worked. That's what we did. And so we'd play football out here, tackle football after school, usually two-hand touch during the day, so you didn't get in trouble. One time we were playing football over here. This was in 6th grade. The worst fight I got into in my elementary school career was right here on this field. There was this big old son of a bitch, and he was quite a bit taller than everyone. He was like that kid who hit his growth spurt before everyone else, so he was like a giant and just towered over everyone. Not just tall, but he started to fill out before everyone else too. So we're all like string beans, and he started to have like some definition, some musculature to his build, and a little bit of stubble and facial hair in like 6th grade, you know. Like I said, big some bitch. And he would just grab people. When we were playing football at school, two-hand touch, he would be the one who'd try to tackle you. But he wouldn't tackle really. He wouldn't like grab you and roll to the ground. He would toss you. Instead of just hitting you with two hands, he would grab onto you and like just throw you across the field. You know, so you'd be right here, woo, and he's tossing you down here where these geese are. And most of the time, people would just get up and, oh man, yeah, oh ouch, oh. Didn't really talk back to him. Well, one time, he roughed me up, and what he did was he grabbed me by the face, like he palmed my face with his big giant hand and gripped it, just like Iron Claw shit, like pro wrestling Iron Claw. Grabbed my face and palmed it and just like launched me backwards. And I got so frackin' pissed. It was just one of those snap moments. It's like Ralphie from A Christmas Story. And I jumped up and I ran at him, and I just started jumping up and punching like fucking Little Mac and Punch Out. That's what I felt like. And I got my slugs in. Like he didn't even connect with anything. I think he was so surprised. And by the time by the time, I don't, how long was it? It was probably like 10 seconds. It felt like it took 10 years. Like I was beating his ass, just whooping him up for 10 years straight. But I mean, pretty quickly, the playground ladies, they came over and they were blowing their whistles and separated us. And I remember they're like restraining him and moving him back towards the school, walking this way with him, and I'm still over here in the field. And he turns around and he yells, "Suck it, Nick!" And he did the DX, you know, because everyone had to do that back in the day. But I had won. I did not care. I did not care if he told me to suck it. I wasn't going to suck it. I had my victory. He took the L that day, and we both got reprimanded. He got suspended, I think, for several days, where he actually had to stay home, because they were familiar with him. They knew his shit. They'd seen his work out there on the playground. They knew what he got up to. So I told my side of the story, and my principal was really cool. He was pretty much just like, hey, you know, I got to do something so it doesn't look like we're letting you off the hook because you were out there swinging at him. My family was totally cool with it. I was always raised, if someone slugs you, you slug them back. And that's what I did that day. And, you know, I wasn't too worried about the in-school suspension. I just had to sit in the principal's office, like right outside the door. I had to sit there at a desk and do my work for 3 or 4 days, whatever it was. He had to stay home. But the cool thing was, after I left the principal's office, I'm walking back to my classroom, like all of the 6th grade teachers were standing outside their classrooms with their hands out, giving me high fives, because they all knew how much of a shithead this kid was. And as far as I know, I was the only person who ever stood up to him. So Did the bullying end after that? I don't really remember. I know I didn't get bullied by him anymore. So he learned not to fuck with me. But I hope it helped other kids to not get bullied in the future. That would be nice. But I don't know for sure. I don't know. What else? I think we've just about exhausted the lay of the land here. I mean, I've got stories for days on this place, but I'm just trying to go off what comes to mind when I look out here. Oh, so these woods back here, this woodland area, they called that the Harry Russell Woods Land Lab. And they had some trails all throughout there. Just a few times a year, this science teacher named Mrs. Harris would come in. She was this really old lady, kind of portly, kind of reminded me of Julia Child. A lot of you aren't going to know who that is, but look up Julia Child. That's who Mrs. Harris reminded me of. Fatter, stranger version of Julia Child. And she would come in and she did a couple things. One is totally unannounced. You'd walk into school and in the cafeteria, she would have had set up this giant like display of different animal bones and specimens and things that you could walk up and look at. I don't know where she came from. I don't know if she taught like mostly at the high school at the time or the junior high, but you didn't see her all the time. She would just show up a few times a year, and then she would also show up to take you to the Harry Russell Woods Land Lab, which she called the Harry Russell Woods Land Lab. I don't know why she said it. That's how she spoke. It was really tough to understand what she was saying. I'll tell you, we're going to the Harry Russell Woods Land Lab. And she would take the kids back here, and we would get samples of different. We'd be given like a sheet, kind of like a scavenger hunt, where you'd have to look for different leaves. You have to find different types of bugs and that kind of stuff. You do that a few times a year. And we would also play hide and seek back there sometimes, like, you know, after school hours. All of us neighborhood rapscallions would head back there and we'd play hide and go seeking, shit like that. Go adventuring, build forts and whatnot. But that's about it. You know, I'm not gonna drone on for too long. But like I said, I'm just feeling a little nostalgic today, and it's like, hey, there's the elementary school. There's Harry Russell Elementary, where I went to school. If you're wondering what it was like to go to school here in the 1990s, the old carefree 1990s. This is what it was like. I mean, it looked better. It looked much better than this back then. And, here's a couple. I got to say, because things are going to keep coming to mind, so I have to cut myself off at some point. But my grandpa used to pick me up after school sometimes. Like I said, I lived down the street, just like, whoop, down here, and then walk about a minute down the road that way, and you'd be at my house. But sometimes I'd want to go to my grandpa's after school. So if he was going to pick me up, he would just park right here. You know, the buses would be parked right here. And, I could oftentimes just, if I was in one of these classrooms, I'd be able to look out and see him right there waiting for me. And that was always nice. It was always a comforting feeling to look out there and see Grandpa waiting to pick me up. I called him Pops. My Pops passed away back in 2004. So, appreciate your grandparents. What else? Something else that I just got to say real quick. I've got this vivid memory of maybe it might have been fourth grade. In fourth grade, I think, in one of these classrooms that bordered the playground area, as soon as school began, they had just gotten all of this pavement redone. It was all nice and good, like brand new. and you could still smell the blacktop or whatever this is that they had put down. You could still smell it like thickly in the air, and they would have these windows open. Every time I smell that smell to this day, it makes me think of that school year, in the beginning of school, and sitting there looking out at the playground at this area. To this day, that's still what I think of. Brings it back like the snap of a dragon. But yeah. All right, guys. Harry Russell, do you have any fun elementary school stories for me? Anything you'd like to recount? Feel free to be completely self-indulgent as I have. I don't care if you think it's boring. Let me know something about your school days. Something you think is lost to time. Something you miss about those days. What do I miss? The simplicity of it. It's something that I lament my children not having. The simplicity of those days. And I know every generation can say something like that, but I really think there's a big difference between being like a kid who grew up in the 90s and even the early 2000s. See, I consider myself an 80s/90s kid because the first things I got into were all from the 80s. When I was really young, but still old enough to start to get into stuff, it was like the late 80s. So my first memories really are probably from maybe 88, but definitely 89. I remember things from 1989. I remember going to see the Michael Keaton Batman film. I remember going to see Ninja Turtles when it came out. I remember watching Turtles. I remember watching He-Man, Voltron, Transformers, all that stuff that had gotten huge in like the early to mid 80s was still big in the late 80s. It's not like, there were a bunch of new IP, as we call them now. We didn't have a bunch of new shows and stuff just constantly coming out and replacing the old ones. It was like the stuff that got huge stayed huge for quite a while back then. So if you were at all an 80s kid, you were into G.I. Joe and Transformers and not Power Rangers, that's 90s. But Ghostbusters, stuff like that. Unless you're my friend Jason, who somehow avoided getting into anything. I don't know what his deal was. But that's what you're into. So I feel like 80s and 90s kids had a pretty similar childhood. We grew up with a lot of the same stuff. The lifestyle was the same. Go to school, get home, play with your friends, walk around the neighborhood, walk further than the neighborhood, walk to the grocery, walk to the video store, walk and just do shit and just stay gone until it was dinner time and then go home. And sleepovers and all that shit and, watching VHS tapes and playing video games. Like 80s, 90s, and even, like I said, probably early 2000 kids, we all kind of grew up in a similar fashion. And I think it really started to change when the internet rolled around. And it's now in a completely different realm with social media and everyone having devices and tablets and so much of life being lived online as opposed to out here. And I'm not saying that as like an old curmudgeon, you put your phone away and never use the internet. No, I mean, I grew up with the internet too. So, but it was more compartmentalized. When the internet first rolled in, you used it when you were at home on your computer. It was almost like it impacted your life about the same way that playing video games did. You could be on the internet when you were home by your computer, the way that you could be playing video games when you were at home in front of your TV. Well, actually back then, you did have some handheld systems. So gaming was much more mobile back at that point than the internet was. But anyway, the point being there that it was kind of confined to one place, and it didn't impact your life all that much. If you left your house, you weren't online anymore. You weren't checking things online. You weren't paying attention to what was happening online. You'd set your away message, and then you'd come back and see who sent you an IM, an instant message while you're gone. Now it's all pervasive. So it makes it tough to pay attention to all of this, and I think that's what I think the current generation is going to miss out on. Probably every generation moving forward. No one's going to have this anymore. No one's going to have that same childhood, and I think that's too bad, because I think my childhood was kick-ass. I loved it. I think I grew up in probably the best time ever. I saw someone leave a comment like that on a YouTube video, something along the lines of that, where it's like, I realized that I grew up in the best time in human history to have been a kid, and it makes me sad that my kids just can't have that. So whatever. It is what it is. Smile 'cause it happened. All right, guys. That's it for me. I'm going to get off of here. Let me know your stories. Let me know what you thought of this. Let me know if it was a complete bore or if you enjoyed it. If a few of you like this, then maybe what we can do sometime down the road, literally, we can go down this road here and I'll take you around the neighborhood a little bit. This was the neighborhood that I grew up in. My street was right here, right around that corner. Cosmos Drive. This is the other crosswalk where the crossing guards used to come out. You were like really big shit if you got to go out to this one, because this one was not like in front of the school. You felt like you were miles away from any of the prying eyes of the teachers, if you got to come down here and fuck around. Anyhow, I'll shut up. Okay? Till next time, take real good care. Keep kicking ass. Love you lots. Lord willing, be back very soon with another video for you to watch. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
We're gonna go viral with this one.